A colleague recently asked me, what should I study to really grow in my pharma career? My answer was simple: health technology assessment. Most people think of clinical trials, regulatory approval, or launch planning when they picture a medicine's journey. But what increasingly determines success is how we prove value. And that's exactly what health technology assessment is about. It's not just for medical or health economists anymore. Whether you're in market access, regulatory, commercial, clinical, or medical affairs, you'll encounter health technology assessment. It shapes pricing, access, development plans, and how innovation reaches patients. If you want to stay relevant and lead, understanding health technology assessment is no longer optional. It's essential. So let's get into it. Why does health technology assessment really matter to us in the pharmaceutical industry? Well, here's the hard truth. Just because a medicine gets approved by a regulatory agency doesn't mean it reaches patients. In fact, more and more, regulatory approval is only the first hurdle. After that comes the much more complex and often slower process of market access, reimbursement, and coverage decisions. And this is where HTA steps in. HTA is what payers and policymakers use to evaluate if a new therapy offers enough value to justify its cost. They want to know, does this treatment improve outcomes significantly? Is it cost-effective compared to existing alternatives? Can the healthcare system afford it? Does it align with national priorities? Those are big questions, and clinical trial data alone rarely provides all the answers. This matters for us because no matter how innovative your product is, if it doesn't clear the HTA bar, it may not get funded, or it might only be accessible to a limited group of patients, or at a significantly reduced price. And this has ripple effects, not just for revenue, but for patients who may not benefit from a potentially life-changing treatment. What's more, HTA decisions shape everything from pricing negotiations to real-world evidence strategies. They influence how your teams build value stories, engage with stakeholders, and even design post-launch studies. Let's talk about something that every team in pharma is working toward: a successful drug launch. We invest years of research, millions in clinical development, and countless hours aligning cross-functional teams. But here's the reality check. No matter how groundbreaking your therapy is, if it doesn't align with HTA requirements, your launch could fall flat. We've seen this happen. Products that showed strong clinical outcomes in trials, but were blocked or delayed because they didn't demonstrate value in the eyes of payers or HTA agencies. And in today's cost-sensitive healthcare environment, this is happening more frequently. A product's launch success no longer depends on regulatory approval alone. It hinges on whether you've built a strong value proposition that meets the needs of HTA bodies, whether you've addressed the real-world effectiveness, the budget impact, the population size, the unmet need, and the long-term economic value. So why is this important to you? Because learning about HTA gives you the foresight to build that value strategy early, not at the 11th hour. Whether you're shaping clinical endpoints, designing evidence plans, or developing medical narratives, understanding how HTA influences launch decisions allows you to contribute in a way that actually moves the product forward. It also helps you avoid costly rework. We've all been there. Launch teams scrambling to generate data retrospectively or trying to reframe the value story after rejection. But if you know what HTA agencies are looking for from the start, you can preempt those gaps. So when we talk about launch success today, it's not just about crossing the finish line, it's about crossing it with the right evidence, the right strategy, and the right value story. And HTA is at the center of that. One of the biggest shifts we're seeing in healthcare policy today is the global adoption of health technology assessment. It's no longer limited to the UK or Western Europe. It's becoming a core decision-making framework in nearly every region. Think about it. The UK has NICE, France has HAS, Germany uses IQWIG, Canada has CAT, and the list keeps growing. But beyond those mature systems, many emerging markets, from Latin America to Southeast Asia, are either building health technology assessment agencies or embedding these principles into their reimbursement processes. Why? Because health systems everywhere are facing the same pressure: limited budgets, rising demand, and the need to invest in innovations that deliver true value. Health technology assessment offers a structured way to evaluate that. It's systematic, evidence-based, and tailored to local needs. So what does that mean for pharmaceutical professionals like us? It means we can't afford to think of health technology assessment as a regional hurdle. It's becoming a global language of access and value. Whether you're preparing a submission in Germany, launching in Brazil, or planning trials in South Africa, the principles are increasingly similar, and the expectations are rising. This is especially important for teams that operate across regions. If you're leading global medical strategy, designing launch sequences, or coordinating evidence generation, a working knowledge of how health technology assessment functions globally can help you anticipate challenges, align better with affiliates, and create stronger, regionally tailored value dossiers. Now let's take a closer look at one of the most directly impacted functions in pharma, market access, and the central role that health technology assessment plays in it. For years, market access teams have been the bridge between the scientific value of a product and the financial realities of healthcare systems. And health technology assessment has become their primary stage. It's the arena where a product's value is either recognized or questioned. Here's the key. Health technology assessment helps determine whether a product will be reimbursed, at what price, for which patients, and under what conditions. So naturally, market access teams are deeply involved in building submissions, modeling cost effectiveness, and aligning evidence with payer expectations. But what's changing is that it's no longer only their responsibility. Today, professionals across medical affairs, clinical development, and even regulatory are being brought into value conversations much earlier. And that's because the way we plan studies, choose endpoints, and frame the medical narrative can either support or weaken a health technology assessment submission later. It also gives you the tools to align your messaging with what matters to payers: outcomes, efficiency, system sustainability, not just efficacy. And for those of you in market access roles, deepening your understanding of health technology assessment principles can give you an edge in pricing negotiations, stakeholder engagement, and value communication. When we think about evidence in the pharmaceutical industry, most of us immediately picture randomized controlled trials. That's our gold standard, right? But when it comes to health technology assessment, we have to go further. Clinical trial data is necessary, but it's no longer sufficient. Why? Because health technology assessment is not just about whether a product works under controlled conditions. It's about whether it delivers value in the real world. That includes a wide range of considerations that extend beyond efficacy and safety. For example, does the treatment improve patient quality of life? Does it reduce hospitalizations or caregiver burden? Can it be integrated smoothly into current healthcare systems without significant new infrastructure? What is the impact on long-term health budgets, and how does it compare to existing alternatives? Health technology assessment evaluates not just clinical outcomes, but also cost effectiveness, patient-reported outcomes, societal impact, equity, and operational feasibility. And this is where real-world evidence becomes essential. Think of it like this. Randomized trials tell us, can it work? But health technology assessment, and by extension, Real world evidence asks, will it work in everyday practice? And is it worth it? This broader lens requires a shift in how we plan our evidence generation strategy. We need to think earlier about incorporating endpoints that matter to payers and patients, not just regulators. That might mean including quality of life scales, resource utilization data, or longer follow up periods. So, as pharmaceutical professionals, we have to adapt our thinking. We're not just building a scientific story, we're building a value story, one that speaks to stakeholders across the healthcare system. And that means embracing evidence that goes well beyond traditional clinical trial data. Let's shift gears for a moment and talk about you, your skill set, your growth, and your ability to make a strategic impact in your organization. Because learning health technology assessment isn't just about understanding policies or reimbursement. It's about building a set of high value, cross functional capabilities that can truly elevate your career. First, you develop a deeper understanding of cost effectiveness analysis, something that's core to every health technology assessment submission. You'll learn what an incremental cost effectiveness ratio really tells us, how QALYs, quality adjusted life years, are calculated, and how decision makers interpret thresholds for value. You also sharpen your ability to read, challenge, and contribute to economic models. You begin to see the assumptions that go into forecasting outcomes and costs, and you're better equipped to discuss value-based pricing strategies with confidence. Beyond that, you gain the ability to translate clinical and scientific results into payer-relevant insights. This is a game changer. Whether you're in medical affairs, regulatory, access, or clinical, being able to speak the language of value helps you become a more effective communicator and a more strategic partner in internal and external discussions. You also begin to connect the dots between evidence, policy, and patient impact. You understand how evidence generation, messaging, and stakeholder engagement all align when health technology assessment is taken into account from the start. And finally, you develop what I like to call system level thinking, the ability to view a product not just as a treatment, but as a component of a complex healthcare ecosystem. That's the kind of mindset that makes people stand out, that builds influence, and that opens doors to leadership opportunities. One of the most underrated benefits of learning health technology assessment is how it improves collaboration, not just within your own team, but across the entire organization. Let's be honest, in pharma, we often work in silos. Medical affairs is focused on scientific accuracy. Market access is shaping reimbursement strategy. Regulatory is managing compliance. Clinical is driving trial design. Commercial is concerned with uptake and messaging. But health technology assessment? It sits at the intersection of all of these. When you understand health technology assessment, you start to see how your work fits into a bigger puzzle. You begin to anticipate what evidence access teams will need. You align better with regulatory affairs when designing studies. You frame communication strategies that resonate not only with physicians, but also with payers and policymakers. In fact, one of the biggest advantages is the ability to speak a common language across departments. If someone from market access is talking about cost effectiveness thresholds, or someone from medical is discussing patient reported outcomes, you'll not only understand them, you'll be able to contribute meaningfully. This is especially important when you're working on launch preparation. Cross-functional alignment is key, and the earlier health technology assessment principles are integrated into your strategy, the smoother that alignment becomes. Also, collaboration improves externally. When you engage with payers, health authorities, or academic partners, being health technology assessment literate helps you build credibility. You're not just presenting a product, you're showing a comprehensive understanding of how that product impacts the system, the patients, and the budget. Now let's zoom in on one of the most central concepts in health technology assessment, cost-effectiveness evaluation. This is the piece that often makes the difference between a therapy being reimbursed at a strong price or not being reimbursed at all. Cost effectiveness isn't just about being cheap or expensive. It's about determining whether the health benefits gained justify the cost when compared to existing alternatives. In other words, does this treatment provide good value for money? Here's how it works. Health technology assessment agencies look at something called the incremental cost effectiveness ratio, or ICER. This compares the added cost of a new therapy to the added benefit it brings, usually measured in something called a quality adjusted life year, or QALY. If the cost per QLE gained is below a certain threshold, the therapy is considered cost effective. Now, what does that mean for you as a pharmaceutical professional? It means that understanding how cost effectiveness is modeled, and more importantly, how it's interpreted, is vital. Learning health technology assessment allows you to engage with these models, ask the right questions, and contribute to refining the assumptions. It also empowers you to challenge models that don't reflect the true value your therapy offers, especially in areas like rare diseases, oncology, or digital health, where conventional cost-effectiveness frameworks may fall short. Bottom line, cost effectiveness is not just a technical detail. It's a central argument in the value story of any new therapy. If you can speak fluently about it, you're going to be a more trusted voice in every room where pricing, access, and evidence are discussed. When most people think about health technology assessment, they focus on the clinical and economic aspects: effectiveness, safety, cost effectiveness. But there's another critical dimension that often gets overlooked: operational excellence. You see, health technology assessment agencies are not just asking whether a treatment works or whether it's affordable. They're also asking, can our healthcare system realistically deliver this therapy? What are the logistical, infrastructural, and human resource implications? Let me give you a few examples. A therapy might require cold chain storage, infusion centers, genetic testing, or specialized staff training. Or it might involve a digital component that depends on internet access or patient literacy. These elements all contribute to what we call the system readiness, and they're assessed as part of the health technology assessment process. For pharmaceutical professionals, especially those in roles like medical affairs, clinical operations, or launch excellence, this is a huge opportunity to add value. If you understand how your product interacts with the health system, not just biologically but operationally, you can anticipate challenges, design appropriate support programs, and generate evidence that speaks to those issues. You can also collaborate with public health teams, payers, and providers to make adoption smoother and more sustainable. And here's the key point: a product that performs well clinically but fails operationally may still be denied reimbursement or severely restricted. We've seen it happen, especially with innovative therapies that require a new care delivery model or infrastructure upgrades. So when you think about health technology assessment, don't just focus on the science and economics. Consider the real-world delivery. Ask yourself, is the system ready? What needs to be in place? And how can we, as pharmaceutical professionals, partner with stakeholders to ensure successful integration? Let's bring this to life with a real-world example that many of you might recognize: an oncology treatment that went through a very challenging health technology assessment journey in the United Kingdom. This particular therapy had promising clinical trial data. It improved progression-free survival. It targeted a high unmet need. Clinicians were excited about it. But when it reached the UK's National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, NICE, it was rejected for reimbursement. Why? The cost-effectiveness ratio was too high. Despite the clinical benefit, NICE concluded that the therapy's price didn't align with the expected outcomes. They raised concerns about trial comparators, long-term benefit projections, and real-world effectiveness. Now here's the important part. The manufacturer didn't walk away. They regrouped. They conducted additional modeling based on real-world patient data. They engaged in price negotiations. They revised the economic assumptions and demonstrated better system alignment. Only after these actions, and after resubmitting new evidence, was the drug finally approved for use under a managed access agreement. This example illustrates something powerful. Even if your product has strong scientific merit, health technology assessment bodies need to see holistic value: clinical, economic, operational, and system level. If any piece of the puzzle is weak, it can delay or derail access. For pharmaceutical professionals, this reinforces why it's critical to think beyond trials. Are we including the right endpoints? Are we generating real-world evidence early? Are we engaging stakeholders who influence system costs? Are we modeling the right scenarios? Because access is no longer a one-dimensional equation. It's multi-layered. And the earlier you prepare your health technology assessment story, ideally even before phase 3, the stronger your position will be. So this isn't just a story about one drug. It's a cautionary tale and a call to action for all of us working to bring innovation to life. Let's talk about you, your career, your influence, your growth. In today's pharmaceutical industry, technical expertise is no longer enough. What sets professionals apart, especially in mid to senior level roles, is the ability to think strategically, to connect scientific work to access, policy, and patient impact. And that's exactly what learning health technology assessment empowers you to do. When you understand health technology assessment, you become more than just a contributor. You become a thought partner, someone who can see where the market is heading, anticipate payer objections, shape evidence plans, and translate scientific narratives into compelling value stories. That's powerful. Imagine being in a launch meeting and being able to speak confidently about cost-effectiveness thresholds, or sitting in a cross-functional planning session and offering insights on how to collect real-world evidence that supports both regulators and payers, or advising medical teams on endpoints that matter not just for publication, but for reimbursement. That's the level of strategic insight health technology assessment gives you. While many professionals can talk about data, fewer can connect that data to policy decisions, access strategy, and health economics. That's why professionals with a working knowledge of health technology assessment are in high demand, not just in access roles, but in medical affairs, clinical development, regulatory strategy, and even corporate affairs. In fact, we're living in an era of unprecedented innovation in healthcare. Gene therapies, digital therapeutics, AI-based diagnostics, mRNA platforms, cell and tissue engineering. These are not future concepts. They are here, now, and they are transforming how we treat disease. But with this wave of innovation comes a new reality. The evidence models and approval pathways we relied on in the past often don't work for these new technologies. And that's where health technology assessment becomes even more essential. Innovative therapies bring unique challenges. They may target ultra-rare conditions with small populations, require complex delivery infrastructure, or have very high upfront costs with benefits that unfold over time. These don't always fit neatly into traditional randomized trials or economic models. That's why pharmaceutical professionals must start thinking differently and strategically. Health technology assessment gives you the framework to do that. It helps you assess not just whether a product is innovative, but whether it is adoptable, sustainable, and system ready. You learn to anticipate what payers and health systems need to feel confident. long-term outcomes data, budget impact modeling, clear operational pathways, and scalable real-world implementation strategies. This is especially important when your innovation is so new that regulators and payers are evaluating it simultaneously. If you don't prepare early for health technology assessment, you risk being caught in limbo after regulatory approval. Approved, but not accessible. Professionals who understand health technology assessment are better equipped to navigate this complexity. They ask the right questions. They identify evidence gaps. They co-create solutions with internal teams and external stakeholders. And most importantly, they help bridge the space between scientific novelty and system readiness. So if you're working in or around innovation, and most of us are, it's time to build your health technology assessment lens. Because the therapies of the future need more than scientific merit. They need a roadmap that brings them from the lab all the way to the patient. As we've explored so far, health technology assessment evaluates much more than clinical trial outcomes. And one of the most powerful tools now being used to strengthen health technology assessment submissions, especially after launch, is real-world evidence. So what is real-world evidence exactly? It's data that comes from routine clinical practice, electronic health records, claims databases, registries, even wearable devices, and patient-reported outcomes. Unlike clinical trials, which are conducted under controlled conditions, real-world evidence reflects how a therapy performs in day-to-day use in diverse populations across different settings and over longer time horizons. This matters deeply for health technology assessment because it allows decision makers to assess real-world effectiveness, adherence, safety, and economic impact, especially in areas where clinical trials might not tell the full story. Let's take an example. A therapy that looks promising in a clinical trial may show different patterns of use or different levels of benefit once it hits the market. Maybe patients in routine care struggle with adherence. Maybe certain subpopulations benefit more than others. Maybe there's a hidden cost saving from reduced hospitalizations. These are the insights that real-world evidence can uncover, and they are often critical for health technology assessment reassessments and continued reimbursement. That means we need to be proactive. That includes thinking early about what kind of data to collect, which outcomes to track, and how to partner with healthcare providers, payers, and patients to get it right. So, if you want to stay ahead, now is the time to build real-world evidence literacy into your health technology assessment skill set. It's the future of evidence generation, and it's your key to maintaining access, supporting pricing, and proving long-term value. So, let's take a step back and bring it all together. We've covered a lot in this session, from understanding what health technology assessment is, to why it matters globally, how it impacts drug launches, shapes market access, demands new types of evidence, and even evaluates system readiness. We explored how real-world evidence plays a growing role, and how these evolving expectations are reshaping what it means to bring a therapy to market. But at the heart of all this is one simple message. Every pharmaceutical professional needs to understand health technology assessment. Why? Because it's no longer the domain of just policy experts or health economists. It's now essential for anyone involved in delivering innovation, from clinical development and medical affairs to regulatory, market access, and commercial teams. It affects how we design studies, how we build evidence, how we price therapies, how we communicate value, and most importantly, how we ensure our innovations reach patients in a way that's sustainable and impactful. In one word, this is the kind of expertise that sets careers apart. As our industry evolves, the professionals who can navigate health technology assessment with confidence are the ones who will shape the future, not just of their products, but of healthcare itself. Thank you for being part of this journey today.